Welcome to Doctors of the Baobab. On this podcast, we go behind the white coat to get to know the doctors that we admire and respect. So join us as we explore the stories behind the stethoscopes, uncovering the humanity behind the medical expertise. Whether it's navigating the complexities of patient care, overcoming personal obstacles, or advocating for change in health systems, each episode promises to inspire, educate, and uplift. So sit back, relax, and prepare to embark on a journey of discovery with Doctors of the Baobab. And in today's episode, I have the pleasure of welcoming a doctor who's not just a physician. She is a powerhouse advocate, an educator, and a change. Dr. Aleobe Eruemulor is a board-certified primary care physician practicing at the Catholic Health Institute, St. Vincent in Scott, Arkansas. But her impact goes much further beyond the exam room. Dr. Ali, as she's known, is a graduate of the University of Benin in Nigeria with an MBBS. She's also a graduate of Arkansas Medical School in Little Rock with a family medicine residency under her belt. Dr. Ali knows firsthand the challenges that international medical graduates face. And instead of letting those obstacles define her, she transformed them into fuel, launching Physicians Keepers and building a YouTube channel dedicated to helping international medical graduates thrive during their residency. Her courage and authenticity have landed her on Fox 16 News and Channel 7, where she shared a journey of resilience and a passion for empowering physicians. She's also the proud recipient of the 2023 Outstanding Young Physician Award from the Pulaski County Medical Society. But here's what makes her voice unmissable. Dr. Ali is raising awareness about one of medicine's most hidden struggles: bullying and discrimination among physicians. As a survivor herself, she's turning her pain into purpose, amplifying the voices of those that are often silenced, and creating safe spaces for wellness, advocacy, and justice. So get ready for a conversation that blends heart and grit and vision. Whether you are a physician, an international graduate, or someone who just cares about building healthier systems, Dr. Ali is going to leave us all inspired to push for change and remind us that advocacy begins with one courageous voice. Dr. Ali, thank you so much for joining me.
But thank you so much, Dr. Fernandez. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I like I told you before, I'm used to being at the other end of this. So this is strange, but any opportunity that I get to share my story, even if it's just one person that hears it and it's able to think differently, I think it's a win for me. And so it's a blessing to be here today.
Yeah. And this has been, as I also shared with you, one of the interviews that I've been really waiting for and excited about. I've literally been counting the days because we have something in common, which is service to our colleagues in different ways, of course. But before we get to the important work that you're doing with Physicians Keepers, I'd like to start off, as we always do on this podcast, at the very, very beginning, going back to your roots in Nigeria and how you eventually became a doctor. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing. What were the moments in your upbringing that attracted you to this work?
So I would say for me, it was my dad. My dad's a physician, so he's OB. And so growing up as a child, he was the example I saw of career and inspiration. So I was one of those that even from as far back as I could talk, if you had asked me, because all my, everyone in grade school, when they see me now, they're like, oh, you really became a doctor, because every time you ask me, that was the only career path that I knew. It wasn't until later in life I just kind of thought, I think this is more of a calling than just, just being inspired by my dad, because there was no other. I didn't go into grade school or college saying, maybe let me see if this will work and I could fall back into this. It was just like, it was okay, you're gonna be a doctor. The only thing was what type of doctor, so to say. So my dad was the first, he was my inspiration, just seeing his interaction with his patients, his dedication to the job, his passion for it, what that was the driving force, I would say. And then when I got into medical school, seeing that this was something that positively impacts lives, where you can just, I mean, the medical stuff is great. Knowing your stuff is good, but just the human to human interaction with patients, where even if you don't have all the answers, but just the way you treat them in that encounter can leave them feeling with such hope, you know, just change their outlook towards a disease or something they're dealing with. Just kind of solidified it at the back of my mind that I made the right decision, into going into medicine. And I finished my medical school in Nigeria, University of Benin. And my decision to move to the United States was, I would say, that came from from a marriage. My husband was here in the US. So I got married like 2 weeks right after medical school. And then practically did my honeymoon, here in the United States. It wasn't something I had thought about, maybe transitioning. Like it wasn't in my cards, so to say, at that time. It was just, okay, the person I was getting married was here in the States. So I'm going to move to the States and then see, kind of just start there. And so when I came, I made the journey in 2008 and I came here. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, I had a timeline for myself. I'm like, okay, I'm going to come here. I hear there's a board exam. I'm going to take the boards in a year or two. I'm going to start practicing. And, I had all that written down. But as you know, sometimes the plans that we have don't exactly go how we want them. And so it took almost 7 years for that journey to actually come to realization, right? So in between, I took the board exams. I had 3 kids, life was going on. And there's this thing about when you come in to, especially the United States, right, where some other places you have the opportunity to practice as a doctor. So you feel like you're a doctor, when you're able to do that. But like in the United States, except you do residency, you're still kind of qualified as a medical student because you can't practice anywhere, right? So then I had this period of just imposter syndrome. It's like, I know I graduated from medical school. I said, I'm a doctor. I have the certificate, but I'm not practicing, like medicine. It was like medicine was farther away from me. I was doing mommy brain, you had done my boards, but then I was involved in like my kids. And so even at that time, my husband would ask me, like, we go somewhere, and he said, introduce yourself. And I introduced myself, and he asked me, he would ask me, he's like, you didn't introduce yourself as a doctor. I'm like, because I'm not practicing, I didn't feel like I could add the title without actually practicing, so it took me about 7 years, to finally get into a position that I wanted to, and a location for me that I wanted to, get a spot in residency. And it was a tough struggle. There were times that, when I put in, there was a year, the year before I matched, I was so certain that I was going to match that year. But it didn't happen. And I told my husband, or in my mind, I said to myself, I'm going to go back to Nigeria. Like there's no, my dad has a hospital in Nigeria. I'll go practice there. Here I am, wanting this so badly and it's not coming forward. And I didn't know what I could do differently to make my application look better, for the next year, because I got pregnant that year. I didn't match. And so I'm one of those that when I'm pregnant, I'm the worst in terms of the hyperemesis. That's me. I cannot leave the bed. I cannot leave them. I'm throwing up. So I'm like, how am I going to show up the next year an application? I couldn't do anything because I was pregnant. But that didn't seem like what you want from an applicant, right? But as God would have it, I matched, the year was 2015 when I got into residency at UMS. So that was kind of my journey here, or the transition here in the United States. So it's a difficult process. Most IMGs, when they come here, they don't realize that it takes there's a mindset to saying, okay, I'm going to do this, coming to a strange land. I have to learn so many different things. I mean, we come from a developing country to a developed country, right? So systems are different, whether we like to admit it or not. Some of the things that we learned were theory. And then when you come to a place and you actually see the practical, there was some equipment, tests, all that, that we knew that these were the tests to order, or, but we didn't, like I said, we didn't have experience with it. So our transition process, if we're not well equipped, can be bumpy. And that's what I found myself when I got into residency that year. It kind of felt like I was not prepared. I didn't know what it was going to take to actually transition. I was just excited when I matched. I didn't ask what it was going to take for me mentally and physically. Like, I was just sad. Like, oh, finally, but then when I got into my program in residency, it was a whole different ballgame. It was a whole different ballgame. Yeah.
Spend a little bit more time on the
Yeah.
residency, but I don't want to lose some of the very interesting aspects that you've already raised before you actually arrived in the US and in the early days, especially around identity, right? Clinical identity. What does it actually mean to be a doctor when you're not in front of a patient? And I'm curious about your experience or reflections in medical school, because from what you're saying, you now have an understanding that you are now, people are able to apply their medical degree in different settings and not necessarily have to be in front of a patient. But we struggle a lot with that.
Yeah.
Whether you're immigrating or you are moving into entrepreneurship or the places where you're not working directly with patients. If you were to go back to medical school and advise people that are developing the curriculum around that particular issue of the identity, what would you say would be the elements of the medical curriculum that need to be updated to accommodate for that? And how would you do it?
So one of the things I would say, so once you make the decision to go into medicine, right, you're already someone who's determined, you're already someone who's hardworking. But I think because of the volume of what we want to do and the single-mindedness it takes to focus on it, we get so wrapped up in that identity and it defines us. We don't realize that there are other aspects of us other than medicine. That's why it's difficult sometimes as a physician to break out into entrepreneurship, because you've identified yourself so long as a physician that you feel like, can I really do something outside of medicine? And, as with unlike other courses where that run for like, 3 years, 4 years, and then our colleagues leave the system, they get integrated into the real world really quick, and so they get to adapt other life skills, business skills, social skills, all that. But for physicians, okay, so let me give an example of a place like Nigeria. Right? We do 6 years. And sometimes if when there's a strike or something happens, sometimes it's an extended 7, 8 years. So you spend this whole bulk of your formative years identifying as just one individual, not realizing that there's so many other parts of you, not just a doctor. Like, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be a speaker, you could be a coach. Like, you would get so narrow-minded. You could be a financial expert. You could be all that. But then it's like, then you finish that 7, 8 years and then you transition into maybe residency, and then you're still identifying, you're still in that training, learning mode that all you want to do is just keep receiving, but you don't know that you're well equipped to actually give out other parts of you. So when it comes to training in terms of our curriculum, I would highly encourage that most medical institutions try to give doctors other opportunities to grow in different aspects other than medicine, right? Give opportunities for like the business side of medicine, right? Because they always talk about the part of we know the medical side of things, but then they call it doctor deals, right? When they say doctors, they don't know the business side of things, right? So no one teaches us about the business side of medicine, where, or like I said, the how to be a good speaker, communicator. All those things are not in the curriculum, and it's just solely focused on anatomy, physiology, biology, like pathology. But outside of that, other skills, we kind of fall short by the time we're leaving. So this is us catching up with our colleagues who, by the time we're leaving residency, so we've done maybe, let's just say 10 years, whole medical training, and then you're meeting someone who finished school 3, 4 years. They're in the corporate setting. They've learned how to negotiate. They've learned how to make business deals. They've learned how to function in the real world, and then here you are just finishing 10 years later, and then it's at that time you're starting to learn how to send a resume, write a resume and do all those things. So it's like you're learning, okay, now I have to invest. Now I have to start thinking about this insurance. Now I have to, and sometimes even at that time you're starting a family then, right? Because you were too busy to do that while you were training. And so it's like you're catching up to your mates who seem more advanced socially and in some certain skills versus you, where you have all the knowledge medical wise, but then other aspects need to catch up. And so there's this imposter thing that comes up where you say, okay, I know medicine. I'll do medicine. I'll focus on medicine because it's what I've been trained. But then anything else, no, don't, yeah. So I'm not going to be the one who's going to take an administrative role because I don't know anything about administration. I just know medicine, right? And so you limit yourself and you shortchange yourself where you can actually be a leader in certain fields because you feel like you don't have anything to offer. So I think in making the curriculum, it just needs to be a little bit more exhaustive for us and to teach other life skills, other than medicine, so that doctors can always have that mindset to fall back on other things. If they decide, okay, I think, I've done medicine and it was great, but I think I want to do something different. I think I have more to give. They feel like they can function in those spaces because there's some degree of knowledge that they can build on.
Thank you for that very beautiful insight about creating a curriculum that is flexible enough down the line to serve us in the real world. And I love your emphasis on that, in the real world, because the world has changed now. Even the core practice of medicine is changing. We're in a new era, but still staying on medicine and the curriculum, we often hear about, and certainly in my field as a coach, coaching people from different parts of the world, I have realized that there is what people refer to as the hidden curriculum. And I know this becomes quite pertinent in your story later on about, aspects of our training that maybe promote silence, they promote imposter syndrome, perfectionism. What are your thoughts on how this hidden curriculum could be corrected or, ensure that the basics of how we should be treating each other and what we learn from our seniors as students does not create in future physicians that are riddled with imposter syndrome, with burnout, who are self-sacrificing, who have no border boundaries, all those things that we end up seeing. If you had a magic wand and you went back and revised it, what would you change?
I would say it starts with having mentor mindsets. One, developing or training physicians to think in that setting where they can they don't just see themselves as teachers, they see themselves as mentors. And the reason why mentorship is very important in the physician setting is it gives you a picture of who to look up to and who to draw strength and inspiration from. So I'll give you an example of someone I met during my course of training. And it was a very brief period of training. It was about 2 weeks where I was under this particular doctor. I could see her humanity. I could see that she was genuinely interested in me as a person, not just my clinical skills as such, but she wanted to make sure that I was the best version of myself. She had this environment around her that was welcoming, where I felt like if I had a problem and I go talk to her about it, no matter how foolish it was, I wasn't going to be judged. She would see that I came to her because I wanted to be better, and she would give me the insight that I needed. And like I said, it was very brief. It was 2 weeks, but this was someone that if I was going through burnout or if I were struggling with something that I felt was overwhelming, that I felt like if I could go to her, she would give me direction that would be real for me and that I could apply. She had a different, so like where the position she was as a specialist was not a track that I could go being a family medicine doctor. But if there were an opportunity, just because of I didn't know what it was, but just because of the kind of person she was, and I could see her heart and her genuine care, I would have said, I want to be this type of doctor because I can see, I could just see myself learning from her. And I felt like even if there were challenges in this particular field, she would help me out. So for us, I think having physicians who are real with with the process as mentors, so that way, if I'm going through burnout, I know that there's someone else that went through burnout that I can go and confide in and talk to and can put me through the process. If I'm struggling with some difficulty in my training, be whatever it is, there's someone that I can confidently go to that would have my back, that maybe to some extent has had experience in this, that is genuine enough to say that no one's perfect, genuine enough to say that we all make mistakes, genuine enough to say that, hey, I made this mistake. I didn't get everything right. You're not going to get everything right. There's no such thing as perfectionism in life, but physicians, because of the type of people that we are, everyone likes to make this, make it look so polished, like we have it all together, but we don't. Right. And so one of the things, like I said, that I saw in just training was we just thought everyone had it all together. Everyone knew their stuff. No one had any flaws, but that's not true. People have their individual struggles. So allowing us or giving room for us to be real about such experiences or exposing, like I said, even medical students to the stories that physicians have dealt with, the challenges would make them realize, I can practice medicine, be a good doctor, and still be a real person, deal with real life challenges and still be able to overcome. Like I don't have to be perfect, right? It's that sense of perfectionism that leads us into the high rates of depression that we have, right? Because we feel like if I don't have it all together, then something's wrong with me. If I struggle in this area, then I can't be a great physician. I have to show them that everything's put together right, and that makes me a better physician. No, it's your vulnerabilities, it's the human side, the seconds of your flaws that actually makes you a good physician, where you can actually show up, not just for other people, but show up for yourself, being real and honest with your experience.
Wow, I couldn't have said it better. You definitely got to the core and to the heart of the work that you do now. I get a lot of colleagues, of course, sometimes medical students reaching out to me now that I'm based in the US, asking about the international medical graduate experience and what they would need to do, what would your advice be, particularly around the mindset based on your own experiences? You mentioned earlier some of the challenges that you had, whether it was mindset or just administrative issues. If you were to give them advice, what should they consider before making a decision to pursue an international career, particularly in the US?
So one, I would say get a community. You cannot do it on your own. Trying to say, I'm just come here and figure stuff out my own, you are setting yourself up for failure. You have to have a community. You have to have people who you have to connect with people who have gone through the process and ask them step by step, like be open to your struggles. Like if you did not pass step one, I find someone say, hey, I didn't pass step one. Like, what do I need to do? Talk, communicate. I had um, in my experience. So when I came in and I prepared for step one. I was preparing for step one and I got pregnant. And so I was very sick, could not read. I'd already paid the money. Here my exam was right in front of me. And I was about a month to my exam and I knew I was not ready. I knew. And so, but part of me was like, just do it. Just do it. You're tired, just get it done. And so I called someone and that was what helped me. I called a friend of mine who had an older sister who was in the US. And I said to her, I was like, I have this board exams coming up. If I forfeit it now, the money's going to go. But I know I'm not ready. And she's like, don't take it. I'm like, so I should allow the money go? She's like, yes, do not take it. And I was like, how am I gonna allow this? Back then was, I think, 700 and something dollars. And I was like, that's a lot of money. And she's like, just let it go. You're not ready. This is not an exam that you can rush. And if you fail it, it's going to be on your permanent records. Right. And so I was so glad that I listened to her and I did take my time. So one, it takes time. It takes time to make that transition. So be gracious to yourself and don't quit. I mean, when I say don't quit, like I've seen stories of people 10 years, and they say, when you're an IMG, they always look at year of graduation, it can work against you. I've seen people 14 years post graduation who kept trying, they kept knocking on doors, someone out there would say yes to you. You might receive 100 no's, but if you don't quit, someone out there would see your resilience and will say yes to you. So just realize it's not an easy process. You're going to need to give it your all. When doors, it's a year, if you don't get in that year, do your best. The next year, look for another door. Look for another. Just keep looking and do not give up on the process because there's someone out there who knows your story, who's lived your story and is willing to give someone like you a chance.
Thank you so much for sharing those tips. Hopefully people will feel better prepared, at least, and with the responses that you have provided. Now, getting back to the work that you're doing now, and of course, your story doesn't start today. It starts during your residency. And I think it's worthwhile to give you the platform really to take us through your experiences of residency and what has led you to today where you are now a physician advocate?
So this was a role that I did not, it was not in my 5-year plan. It was not in my 10-year plan. I did not ever think of being in this role, so to say. It was something that based on what happened to me in residency that made me say, okay, I think I need to do something about this. Because I know what it did to me. I know the dark place that it took me to. And I didn't want to know what it felt like for someone else to go through that and not have support, or at least not feeling like they had to do it alone. And so that's what made me say, let me see what I can do with this. Let me see if just saying my story would make a change to anyone. And so when I started my residency program, so I was someone that had never dealt with anxiety, depression. If you ever grew up in Nigeria or from Africa, those things where like that's for Nigerian term, they say that's an Oyibo man thing. We don't deal with that here. So it was very foreign to me. Like I said, I never used like, suck it up, deal with it. You have food in your stomach, you're fine. So when I started residency, this strange thing started happening to me where I started becoming very anxious, very depressed, and I didn't know it. Like we're trained to look for these things in patients, right? But I did not know that I was going through severe depression and severe anxiety. I just I was terrified when I started because I was like, okay, I've been out of this field for 7 years. I haven't felt like a doctor in 7 years. This program, they took me in and they want me to act like to be a doctor because, that's what I trained for. But can I really do this? Like, I don't know. Like, so I started feeling like that whole imposter thing started coming back. I was like, oh my God, they're going to find out that I'm a fraud. They're going to find out that I'm not real, you know? And so I would, I would find myself, but I started inpatient. I would find myself walking into the halls and I'm visibly shaking. I'm terrified. Like I would go to the bathroom. I would say, calm down. I would talk to myself and I was like, what is this? Like I would be looking at the screen doing the EMR and it's like I could not see anything. I could not process patient to patient information. So you're asking me a question and it's a question that I know, but because I'm so full of anxiety, I, I could, I literally could not. So I was struggling. And I knew it wasn't, and I said, this was foreign to me. I'm like, what's going on? I mean, doctors, we like to think of ourselves as, we may not be the smartest in the room, but we know enough. And I'm like, I finished medical school. Like I think I did well. So I should have enough to do this. And so because I could not understand this version of me that I was seeing, I, I've almost became near hysterical. And so I'm looking to my program at that time and I was like, I, you know, I was worried at my performance. And like I said, I'm very open with my journey. I was struggling. I mean, I was struggling my first few weeks. Like, I was worried that they're going to see my performance and be like, no, she's not a good fit for this program. And so I was kind of trying to reach out to like the ones ahead of me to like say, hey, can you help me out? Like, how can I do better? Something's wrong, and I don't know if that vulnerability approach that I was taking was kind of like when they say sharks smell blood in the water, was where my bully kind of saw that and decided to then act. Until today, I don't know. But then all I knew was that I started getting a lot of hostility from the certain individual. And I could not place where it was coming from. I would ask him, like, did I do anything? Did I say anything? I mean, it wasn't even just the medical knowledge stuff. It was just simple things like EMR. Like, where do I put this in the EMR? What do I do? Like, how you would train an intern, right? I was getting a lot of negative feedback, just even and residents talk, that's one thing. If you ever go to a residency program, and I hope that's something they can try to work on. And residents talk among themselves. So you see, like 30 years, when first year levels come in, they would kind of scrutinize them. They would like say, this is a bad resident, this is a good, like they would have all that chit chat among themselves, right? Not in a way to help the intern. Like they're not saying, oh, this intern is struggling. How can we help this intern? It's more of just talking about them without any support, you know. And so I got feedback, somehow circle back to me about the chatter he was having with other residents, basically saying that I was too stupid for him to work with and stuff like that. And because I felt that way, then I felt like, oh yeah, I deserved it. I deserved to be treated wrong because I'm not performing. Maybe if I was smarter, maybe if I'd coming more prepared, maybe if I acted like I knew my stuff, he wouldn't treat me this way, and I'm coming into a program. I was so grateful to be there. So I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. I didn't want to go start saying this is happening. And they're like, well, you just came in here. Why are you causing all this chaos? So I just felt like put your head down and just go through this. But I was drowning. Like I was literally felt like I could not breathe. like I was suffocating. And I did at some point in time, I reached out to someone and I was like, did I do anything to this individual? Like, what, how can I fix this? And all the only feedback I got was, well, it happened to me during my time. Just suck it up until he goes. Like that's the way it is. So I was like, oh, okay. That's the way it is. Okay. And so I just continued, I was losing weight. There was a day I sat down. I remember this incident too. I sat down in front of I was finished seeing patients after rounds. I didn't even realize I hadn't eating. So I sat down on from like 1 o'clock till 7, trying to catch up and trying to process, trying to think with the patients where, and then all of a sudden I just had this sharp pains in my stomach and it was like, I felt like I was about to pass out. And then I just realized that I didn't have any food in my stomach, and the days were just going and I felt like I would, I would go home every day crying. And then my husband's like, what's going on with you? You asked for a residency. You've gotten a residency program. Why are you not happy? And I was like, I would call my mom crying. I'm like, Mom, I have an enemy at work. He's like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. I just know when I walk into the room and he's there, the environment is so hostile. I can't function. Anything I do, a simple mistake as maybe I forgot the pager in one room, it's amplified to like 100. And back then I didn't know it was just a little thing. In my mind, I thought I'd killed a patient. You forgot the patient. Oh my God. It was so, I was going through all that. And then one day I said, all this while surrounded by doctors, I go to a resident, there are a bunch of doctors around me. No one could tell that I was dealing with all this. No one reached out to me to say, hey, you know, what's going on with you? Like, and I guess part of it, well, they didn't know me, right? I'm new. They don't know my personality before. They didn't know who I was before all this. All they are seeing is this version of someone who's just act like she doesn't know anything. She's scared. She's terrified. She's anxious. I had a full-blown panic attack one day when I was presenting in clinic, and that's when it hit me. I'm like, what just happened? That's a panic attack. Oh my God. I'm dealing with anxiety. Oh my God, I'm dealing with depression. Like, this is it. Like, this is why I can't think. This is why I can't function, you know? And I said, I didn't know who to talk to because I'm like, if I tell them I'm depressed or I'm anxious, would they look at me as a weak resident? Would they fire me? Like, would this be something that they would say she's not fit for the program? And then I already had my program director calling me. She was like, hey, your first rotation, we can see you struggled. Was everything okay? Did everyone help you? And I didn't know how to tell her that. No, it wasn't. Like, I didn't feel support. I didn't feel supported. Like, no one, I didn't know. I just said, I just nodded, okay, I'll work harder. I'll put my head down. If you give me a chance, I'll work harder. She starts like, okay, you got to work harder because otherwise you're going to have to put you in probation, all that. And so that just sent me like into, you know, further depression. I remember one day I was driving, and something just said, I got through a traffic circle and just said, let go of the wheel, like, don't make that turn. And I was like, where did that come from? I know I didn't want to kill myself. I didn't want to show up either. Like, I didn't know how not to show up, but just accept not being here. This was something I had wanted for so long, and it was finally here, and I didn't know how to quit. I didn't know what quitting would look like. And so I finally had a breakthrough, so to say. I think that came around December. So my program started July, December, where we did the in-training exam thing that we do, the board exams, and then I got like the highest score in there. And it suddenly was like, oh, okay, I actually know stuff. It was like, and then that same thing happened too with the programs. Is like, everyone else that had their eye on me, like thinking, and I'm like, oh, she she knows stuff. She's not. What's going on with her? Like, why is she not showing up? You know. And so when that happened, that was God's way of kind of making me. Actually, I'm a spiritual person, and so I walk in faith, and so there were a lot of prayers, I say all sorts of prayers, all manner of prayer that went out just to say, God, you gave me this program. Like, why is it so hard now? Like, I trusted you for this, and why am I struggling? Like, what's all this about? And a friend of mine said something to me, and Dr. Gloria echoed this when we were having our interview, that it stuck with me for so long. And that was reasons that we connected so much. My friend told me, she said, knowledge is not congenital. It's not. Anything you don't know today, you can know tomorrow. No one's born with this. If you don't notice it, you learn it and then you know it tomorrow and then you show up knowing it, And so by the time I went around the second, I got it, and my bully left also too. Like he went out of the program, finished. So I went into the following year. I was a different person. I mean, anyone that could see me would tell that. I haven't had an attendant ask me. He looked at me, he said, I was presenting during the rounds, and he said, "What happened to you?" Because he could see someone totally different. And I just smiled because I know what I had to overcome. And so now I I learned the lingo, because there's a language you have to learn. I learned the lingo. I knew how to show up. I knew that when I step into a room, I'm not, I should not cower behind someone else. If that's my patient, I need to get up. I need to talk. I need to be confident. Confidence is key. And we're not taught that a lot when it comes to international training. We're always taught, keep your head down, let the big doctors do the talking. You all you have to just show up and take notes. But it's different here. Here they want to know that you know your stuff. If you're quiet in the room, no one knows you know anything. But when you show up and you talk and you're confident, and so it was kind of like, then I had confidence with three people, at that point in time, because I walk into a room and they think I'm a second year or a third year, but they didn't know that I was a first year, because it was like now I had that, and I didn't have to, I guess, and I had that validation, so to say, in myself, that, okay, I belong here. But it doesn't matter what was said or what happened, like, I actually do belong here. And the anxiety, the depression, all that had lifted. So I could finally be who I knew I was. I could be the joyful person. The, I could be in a room and get along with everyone and not be intimidated. And they get to know the real me, because um, of who I was now. And so when on leaving residency, I thought about my experience and I thought about what it did to me. I thought about that individual. I thought about how he treated me. I wish I had confronted him, but I didn't have the voice then to do that. And so I said, what would I have wanted to happen for me? What would I have wanted, because at that time I could not have a voice. And I wish someone had been my voice. I wish someone had gone up to him to say, "Hey, we know she's struggling, and that's okay. But our role as, doctors is to help each other. Like, we're not competing for anything. Like, we're not like, we're invested in patients, and our goal is to create healthy populations. Like, how can we make sure that she's the best version of herself? Like, what are her struggles? What does she need to address? Like, I felt like if I'd had that support, or if I at least felt like I wasn't going through what I was going through alone, I would have felt better. And it wasn't until I started like talking to other people individually and sharing their stories that I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what happened to me. That's exactly how I felt. That's what I went through. And I'm like, so we're all going through this, and we just felt like it was unique to us, but it really wasn't. And I don't know to today why that individual did what he did. I don't know if that's the way he was trained. I don't know if that's the mindset. It's just repeated trauma or whatever that came on, that I got, that landed on me. And so I kept asking myself, why me? Like, why did this happen to me? Why not somebody else? Why did I have to go through this? And so when Physicians Keepers was, when I was thinking about it, I was like, how can I show up for my fellow physician? Like, what would that look like for me? Showing up, or at least making someone know that you're not alone. Whatever struggles that you're having to deal with, someone has gone through it. And maybe they found solutions, maybe they didn't. But then just hearing them that you didn't go through it alone makes you feel better. Right? They say I'm trying to think of the saying, but there's comfort in numbers, right? There's healing in numbers. So knowing that you didn't have, that was not unique to you, and that someone else, went through it and maybe overcame it, would help someone to think differently, prepare better, know what to say because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to report to. I didn't know none of that. So Physicians Keepers was created to at least gives voice, to tackle bullying that occurs in medical training to say, we can do better. We can train people that have better mental mindsets. That where I see a doctor who's struggling, my first impulse is not to say, fire them or kick them out. It's to say, how can we help you? How can we do better? What are your challenges? Are you like dealing with something at home? It's just like, how can we help you be a better doctor and be genuinely not, oh, how can we help you? And then discover that that was all they wanted to just figure out was just what you had to say, like just highlight your faults, but not to say, okay, this is a problem. This person has been through this. We think we can tackle and give you an opportunity to help work through those things. You know, and if I mean, I've done talks before when I tell residents, I'm like, bullying is not a one-off thing. It's not where someone just one day, a dental physician is mad at his wife and takes it out on you. That's not it. This is a repetitive pattern, and it could be subtle, could be direct in your face. It could be just as simple as saying stuff like, I don't know where your brain is at today. Like, or sometimes I think you're brilliant. And then next thing you open your mouth and it's toxic. Like, why would you say that to someone else? Right. And then just to have, like I said, those are mindsets that have been, handed over from one position to another. And then it continues those trends to say, how can we break those mindsets? How can we teach physicians we have the mind where we are trained to heal patients and do no harm to patients. But then we turn around and we do harm to other physicians. Make that make sense? Like, how can you be so invested in patients, but then when it comes to your fellow physician, you are in that unique position to know the struggles, the challenges, how tough this job is, the mental fortitude it takes, and then you go around and then you want to cause them harm. That doesn't fit right. It's why I've done what I do or try to do what I'm doing right now to just be a physician's keeper, educate, train. Let's have this new generation of physicians that know how to teach, know how to train. Not everyone knows how to teach. We think everyone does, but no. You're going from first year to second year, and no one sits you down and say, hey, you're going to have an intern come under you. These interns are scared. They don't know what they're doing. Some of them are terrified. This is how you need to train them. Your tone of voice matters. How you say things matters. You can deliver one sentence, but how you delivered it matters. You can train to uplift. You can teach, not teach to pull down. There are different ways of training, but there's no system like that set up now in most academic institutions. You just move from first year, second year, third year. There's no one ever saying, hey, you have someone coming under you. This is how you need to talk to them. This is how you need to train. This is how you need to be that safe space for them. This is how you need to mentor them. So I'm hoping at some point in time that physicians keepers would be able to fill that role where we advocate for those who are being bullied genuinely, and then we're able to train physicians who think differently in terms of training and teaching, and we'll be able to uplift and teach, lead with empathy towards other physicians and just be there for each other. So someone I met in this journey that I interviewed, we're doing a virtual summit in November, and it just called Bullying in Medicine. That's what the summit is, and it's like one of those things where people are like, are you sure you really want to talk about that? Because those are like taboo topics. I'm like, it's happening, whether we admit it or not, it's happening. And it's not just an American problem.
Global.
It's a global
It's global. It's international.
Yes. And so why are we so scared to talk about it when we know the damage is done to other physicians? So we're hosting a bullying in medicine. It's a virtual summit. And it's just something for us to come together. Say, let's share our stories. Let's know that this is real. Let's build solutions for this. Let's create that mindset. Let's educate. Hopefully maybe folks are not aware, create awareness around it. And maybe in that, once we create awareness, we can find solutions, lasting solutions, and we can have physicians think differently about how they train and how they build other physicians.
Wow. Well, I really wanted to give you a lot of room to talk about that. And a big part of why I wanted to do that is, obviously in my area of work right now, I do a lot of coaching, and invariably some of these stories emerge about the experience in medical school, microaggressions, bullying experiences, and there's always some emotional residue that affects us currently, the way that we show up, that often emanates from those types of experiences in medical school. And we don't often see the link because
Yeah,
the culture, right? It's
yeah.
you, whether you're moving from one country to the other, it feels familiar even. So I'm really proud of the work that you're doing, Dr. Ali, in taking it further, acknowledging that this is an issue that has to be addressed in the medical community and for the well-being of physicians. And as you say, we need to put the same focus on ourselves and the same energy on ourselves as we do for our patients. We will do anything for our patients, but it's important for us also to take care of ourselves, and who better to do that than people who have been through that journey. So I really do appreciate it. For sure, I will put the information with regards to the summit in the show notes, and also how people can reach out to you. For maybe somebody who's listening out there who wants to support you, how can they, in their own corner, start addressing these issues and become physician advocates as well? Well, what would be the first steps in their little spot where they are, if they see whether they are being bullied themselves or they see other colleagues being bullied? Where can they start? What's the first step?
So I would say one is that you have to get yourself educated. And so currently I'm working on a course and I'm hoping it'll be ready by the summit, to actually give education as to what bullying is and what it isn't, how to identify it, how to speak up about it. So I'm working on that to give adequate information behind it. But um, I would say so I said the role differs depending on what's happening to you. If you are being bullied, speak up. Speak up. Someone out there, if one person doesn't listen to you, find someone else. Someone out there will listen to you. And also, like I said, we're in trying to work to be, we're doing putting a lot of work into this summit to try to get advocates for doctors to see, okay, it's a safe space where doctors can go to, because we all know sometimes there are repercussions that come back, of safe space that doctors can go to actually then share and then decide what to do. If you're the one seeing someone that's being bullied, speak up for that individual. Speak up. I said, I wish someone had done that for me. Let them know that you have their back. Uh, it's a dark place to be. And so if you find someone that, is being bullied, talk to the individual. Even if you can't talk to the individual themselves that is doing the bullying, talk to them as being bullied, letting them know, hey, I'm here for you. I may not be able to talk to this person because they are superior, but if you need anything, let me know. However, I can assist you. I know whatever is happening to you is not right, but however I can assist you, just let me know. I think that will go a long way in making them know that they are not alone. And that would also help in their healing journey. Connect with, find someone, like I said, whatever you're going through, someone has gone through this. And so you can also, if it becomes overwhelming, I just want someone to talk to. You can send me an email, right? And if you just want to just share some tips, however, I can help you out at Eruemulor@gmail.com. And I will be glad to just either just hear your story, hear you vent, if that's what you want to do, and then see where we can go from there.
Very useful and actionable steps that you've suggested. And I'm sure that there's somebody out there who will either reach out to me or to you after watching this episode to get more information. And so before we close, I normally invite my guests to just maybe give us one or two parting shots before we wrap up.
So I guess what I would, kind of wrap up everything I said would be don't do life on your own. Human beings were not meant to do that. Anything that you are dealing with, someone has dealt with it. And perchance someone has found a solution to it. So always be ready, always be that person that, speaks up, find your tribe, find people with the like same mindset as you. And once you do that, you would find that it'll be hard for you to fall because someone would always have your back supporting you.
Wonderful words of wisdom. And thank you so much again, Dr. Ali, for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. It's been a wonderful and inspiring and inspired conversation with you. And I know that I've also learned a great deal from you. And certainly anybody out there that's also watching or listening, they're also going to take away some wisdom from all the challenges and the experiences that you've shared. They'll learn from it and grow from it as well.
Thank you so much.
So, but before we part ways, and wrapping up another insightful episode of of the Baobab, I'm sure that you found today's discussion both enlightening and inspiring. And if you're a doctor, you've been inspired by what you heard today and you're ready to take action towards positive change, you can consider working with me as your coach. You can also email me to learn more about the coaching services and how to embark on this transformative journey together to uncover your strengths and unlock your fullest potential. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or your podcast platform where you get your podcast so that you don't miss another episode that is filled with so many valuable insights and strategies for personal growth. Importantly, particularly for this episode, if you know somebody who could benefit from our conversation, please be sure to spread the word, encourage them to subscribe and to tune in. You can find us on all our social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So join the conversation, comment, share your thoughts, and also connect with like-minded individuals who are also on their journey to improving their lives. Remember, every small step that you take towards your goals is a victory worth celebrating. So until next time, keep thriving and keep growing and keep shining. Doctors of the Baobab, where medicine meets motivation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nandini.